Right, Bwana Mwaura, you've listened to the story by Catherine Mwanza. You've heard Senator Kasanga, who is now speaking in her capacity as the president of the Architects Alliance. You've heard she's got some criticism of the housing project, and she gave you guys a 3 out of 10. Do you feel it's an unfairly graded statement?
Yes, very unfair to my former colleague in the Senate. And I think I find her a bit conflicted, because on one hand she's saying that, oh, what is the government doing competing with the private sector? Then on the other hand she's saying that there is no any architect who has a capacity to build 5,000 houses at a go, not unless you invite the Chinese. I mean, what are we saying? That is speaking from both ends of her mouth. And so therefore, let us be clear. For a government that only found 8,872 houses being constructed under the Big Four agenda, to actually have over 130,000 houses being built, it is phenomenal. And I would tell you, from my visit to those areas, because I have been there, the stories are very, very encouraging. I remember finding a lady Mwikali, telling me that she's making 30,000 shillings a month and she has somewhere to go to work every morning as a result of this affordable housing. I remember visiting houses. I heard her saying that these houses are only from the Ministry of the Ministry headquarters. That's not true. The National Housing Corporation is the one that is building the houses in Homa Bay. I mean, we were there with the Director General of the National Housing Corporation. So it is not true, some of these allegations that, you know, maybe somebody may be trying to make. The truth of the matter is, since independence, there is no government that has ever built as many houses as the Kenya Kwanza administration. That one I can tell you, can take it to the bank. What was the problem? And that's why we have not been able to meet the target. And we are doing very well. Having promised 200,000 houses a year, now we are at 130,000.
200,000 or 250?
200,000. We need to build 1 million houses in 5 years. So these 200,000 houses that we are supposed to construct for every year, so that if you get it very clearly, because 50,000 is provided for by the private sector in terms of the mortgages. We are supposed to have done it earlier, but then we were taken to court, remember. I mean, this housing levy was really litigated a lot, but now we are making good progress. We've been able to create over 244,000 jobs, and I find it very interesting for the Architects Alliance to say that we are talking about employment through this. It is extremely important, because 100,000 TVET graduates have now decent jobs as a result of this affordable housing. I have met young engineers, even increasing the participation of women. You know, our target is to increase their participation in construction industry from 20 to 30%, you know, going forward. You are talking about over 4.4 billion shillings given to these Juakali artisans and whatever. And if you remember, even there are big checks that have been presented by His Excellency the President. Remember when you were in Thika, during the affordable housing, there's a whole group there that got over 100 million. There's another one called Bypass in Roiro. There's also one that was given, a big check, about 700 million in Kwale during the Mashujaa Day. From here in Kibra. People are actually benefiting from this program. So
if things are as rosy as you say, so why are people so disgruntled about this?
I mean, part and parcel is, as you have heard the minister say, people want to see Kenyans being given keys. And she has given commitment that by the end of March, she will be handing over 4,888 houses. Like, for example, if you go to Mukuru, 1,080 units are ongoing. So when people start seeing that, because we have over 400 projects across the country currently ongoing on this affordable housing, even that consumption and capacity, over 500 local companies have been subcontracted for this work. So we are also building capacity, because yes, if it has not existed before, it takes time to build.
But okay, Mr. Mwaura, we are going to come back to pick up on that in just a bit. We need to take a short break, but I'm still not convinced by your argument, and I'll tell you why. We take a short break on NTV tonight. We'll be back with the government spokesperson in regard to the Kenya Kwanza midterm report. Stay with us.
Kila safari huanza na ndoto. As we celebrate 40 years, our promise is to be with you for life. Tufanikishe zaidi.
Kupitia star 570 hash, tunakupa nafasi ya kuchomoka na this beautiful Mazda Demio. Let's check out the amazing features. Enjoy a beautiful, clean, semi-leather interior, low mileage, touchscreen and a reverse cam, fuel-efficient 1300cc engine, great for personal use and business. It has a blind spot monitor, parking sensor, and smart brake support. Ukikaribia any obstacle, unapata alert. Ukitaka kujishindia gari hii, kucheza ni rahisi sana. Chukua simu yako, bonyeza star 570 hash, chagua option 3. And for only 35 shillings, hii gari inaweza kuwa yako. Kumbuka kucheza mara kadhaa, because the more you play, the higher chances of wewe kuwa mshindi.
Thank you, Jesus. Mungu ni mwema, asante Mungu. Ile nitakuwa naendesha hivi.
Uber ama personal car. Huu mwaka, inuka na Loto Moto. Dial star 570 hash and make this dream car yours.
Cheza Loto Moto.
The government has joined efforts with the private sector to launch the Kenya Public-Private Sector's MSMEs Dialogue, dubbed MSMEs Connect. This is an initiative that aims at establishing an MSMEs development ecosystem for sustainable and economic growth engagements with MSMEs across the 47 counties. The Ministry of Cooperatives and MSMEs Development is inviting all of you to the Kenya Public-Private Sector MSMEs Dialogue launch on Friday, 14th March 2025 at KICC Nairobi at 8 a.m. Key speakers from national government, county governments and private sector will grace the occasion. We look forward to hosting you.
Every story begins with a place, a home, and the dream of a lasting legacy. We create inspiring spaces, enduring investments, and thriving communities. With over 500 homes completed, Makash brings you exquisite 1 to 6 bed apartments, duplexes, and villas in Parklands, Hurlingham, Lavington, and Syokimau, starting from 6.5 million shillings. Enjoy up to 35% capital appreciation, flexible payment plans with 0 interest. Own, invest, or rent with Makash, where we create more in return.
Download OneXBet app and enjoy the variety of sports anytime, anywhere. OneXBet app, at the heart of the game.
Welcome back to NTV tonight, to that conversation with the government spokesperson, Isaac Mwaura. And Bwana Mwaura, just before we took the break and as we just moved to the, prepared to move to the next topic, on the housing plan, I mean, a lot has been said. No, I don't think there's much value in terms of regurgitating, but do you feel it's just because Kenyans are not seeing themselves being given a key? Really? Are you honestly feeling that's the only reason why people are disgruntled or unhappy about this? Is that the reason the matter was taken to court? Is that the reason people are saying, why forcing me to buy a house or build a house when I don't want one? Or someone says, I already have one. Do you think it's just because people are not seeing the houses being given?
I think it's because it's the first time that it's happening. And so the believability of it.
But is this the reaction of any new thing, really?
Exactly, yes. Any new thing introduced, especially by government, is met with a lot of resistance. There's nothing that really people run towards. Look at any program, give me one that people are very happy to say, now we are ready to, especially where they are also making their contribution. And I will take you to, even myself. I mean, I have my own home, but I am contributing because it's a patriotic duty to do it. And when you do it, you are enabling another person first get a job because of that construction. Number two, you're also enabling another person to own a home. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's extremely important because if we don't do that way, then we end up borrowing to do the same. And we need houses. We have had a shortage of 200,000 houses every year. So we're actually building new slums.
Let me just come in there, sorry.
Yes.
When you talk about it helping other people, and which is noble, which is good.
Yes.
But there's the presumption that everyone else, especially those who are salaried, have extra money somewhere. And that is one of the problems that came up, that people have raised, that you're talking about helping. You're basically being made to become our brother's keepers, somehow by force. Yet, are we considering or not considering that these are the same people who have what we call black tax? The same people who, I don't know how many, I don't know about you, but the number of WhatsApp groups you'll find yourself in where either someone is unwell or someone is bereaved or someone has whatever need for money. And it may not be those occasional ones like health, for instance, because I know you'll probably come and bring in the share dynamic. I'm ready for that. But don't you appreciate the fact that people have got already have a number of things that are burdening them financially? So when you impose this, and that was what part of where the uproar was, it's not so much about not believing, in because they're not seeing houses.
First, let me appreciate the fact that that is true, that anyone who is salaried in this country has got many dependents. In fact, I've just come from having a conversation with a young lady called Karen Chepkemoi, and she was narrating to me how she's a sole breadwinner at the age of 27, you know? And I could see her pain because by the end of the day, everyone wants to do something. But look at it this way. That is the only way that we are able to make a sacrifice that in the long run will help us to serve better.
What if we don't have the money to make the sacrifice? No,
we do have the money because already, as you have clearly stated in your story, we have been able to collect over 6 billion shillings. Houses are ongoing. The demand is there because over 550,000 Kenyans have registered in the Boma Yangu, star 832 hash, to get these houses. So there is actually demand. We still have, challenges. For example, now our universities, they need more hostels, for example. We have even, other public facilities that are required for, in terms of, construction and what have you. But affordable housing, we have a housing shortage. And let me tell you, my brother, when housing is a very dignifying thing. When you have your own home and you can afford it, and government is providing for land for it, it is subsidizing it so that you can get a studio, like for example, in Mackenzie for only 980,000 Kenya shillings. I think it's extremely important because now you're making things that people are not able to afford come closer to them collectively. Yes, there is pain because there is no gain without pain. And we have that African spirit of contributing. So I would want to really plead with Kenyans. Yes, it is heavy, but in the long run, the benefits are far outweigh the immediate, loss that we may feel.
But you do know that your pleas are not adding anything to people's pockets, and that is where the pain is, Bwana Mwaura, because it sounds like it's coming from a point of privilege that you have the extra to give. We have had stories. I'm just in case this is intel that has not gotten to the decision makers, where people are saying they don't have money to get a meal. Are we saying that wajipange somehow so we can be able to do this? And that is the question that many have been asking, because it has been from the housing levy, there then became the increase in NHIF or, the kind of contribution, the statutory contributions, a sense of insensitivity.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yes, I think there is. I mean, that's when you think about when you're told that you definitely have something to spare when someone generally does not have.
No. I think that premise is wrong. We did not have these levies and contributions with the idea that you have something to spare. Let's take the example of the NSSF. When you save your money and the employer is forced to contribute an equivalent amount, and then this money is for your own future, it is you who is going to benefit. So you are not sparing it because you have it. You are actually investing and securing your old age. You see, that's number one. When you talk about social health care, and I think we are going to come into that, you are benefiting directly by when you go to hospital, and I was in a hospital today, that cost is subsidized. when you talk about housing, you are increasing the affordability of housing to the extent that right now as we speak, the mortgage, because of this influx of houses from the government, has reduced actually to about by 6.7%, the interest. And the refinancing of mortgage has increased from 2,500 to about 3,700. Now, already by 1,005, units. So you are talking about a situation whereby you are increasing the equal opportunity, but at a macro level, so that people can benefit. That is not to say that you are taxing what is, a disposable income. Not at all. Yes, it is painful. But we are all contributing to the general good of the economy.
But we can't deny that it's putting down the disposable income per person. And further to that, a question that has been there is, why did we have to have all of them at the same time? Because had they been faced, because we felt like a burden that came within a very short period of time, when it was a tough economy, we've seen employers and various economic players talking about they've had to retrench, they've had to close down some businesses, they've had to restructure, and it's partly, not entirely I must admit, but partly been attributed to the environment in which, the economic environment, because employers are having higher obligations to the state, and the employees as well. There's a lot more demand for that income, which is not there because a lot of it is going to the taxman, to the government.
First and foremost, these things were not introduced at a go.
Within the same frame of time,
they have been introduced at different intervals.
So we think the intervals were good enough for people to adjust?
And so therefore, my brother, you cannot say that one day you woke up in the morning and you found a payslip with all 3 or 4 deductions. So that is a fallacy.
No, but my point is, are we saying then the time in between?
Allow me to answer also.
Just to clarify.
Allow me to answer. Allow me to answer, because I'm also listening to you as you prosecute, and then I can respond as well. Because if you don't allow me to answer, then we are not communicating. Yeah. So that actually did happen, and in fact and indeed, we were very, very considerate, going forward, because we are looking at how is it Kenyans would benefit. There is no deduction, my brother, that does not accrue direct benefit to the contributor. There is no. If you look at it from, that level, that when you contribute to NSSF, for example, you are going to secure your future. When you contribute to Taifa Care, you are going to secure, a better health system, that is not gamed, that is not highly privatized. That is a public good that all of us should be proud of. When you talk about the issue of affordable housing and reduce the cost of mortgage, and ensure that that is transferred, even for you, one person who may say, I may not take a loan, but if you go to the private sector, if it is giving you the best, whatever, now it is more competitive. So it is benefiting all of us.
But, so are you saying that when these were being brought in, the assumption here is that the interval between the first increment and the next one was enough for people to adjust?
I don't think, my brother, to
so
be
that
very sincere,
if it is not enough time?
I don't think that's a fair question, because how enough is enough, honestly? What is a quantum? Is there an SI unit for that? No, I don't think so. It was the right time. It may have been some painful decision initially, but increasingly, people are going to see the benefits. That I stand with very strongly.
So when the Gen Z-led protests happened last year, are you saying are you then in the direction that they were somewhat ill-informed because people felt it's a heavy burden, which is why they went to the streets? Are you saying those were ill-informed?
Again, another wrong assumption. The Gen Z protests were about the finance bill, which was shelved.
But which was introducing new taxes?
No. We are talking about healthcare, NSSF, and the one in the payslip.
But I'm talking about the increased cost of living.
No, the cost of living has reduced considerably, my brother.
So that's what I'm saying. So are we then saying the premise of the protest was misguided?
No, we are not talking about the premise. We are talking about the response.
No, I'm asking about the premise.
Because anyone... No. I will not talk about the premise, because the response was that it was shelved. So that means we have a hearing and a caring government, my brother. And that is why we have gone on a budget consolidation and reduction of expenditures. By the way, the first supplementary budget of this financial year, last year in July, was not to reallocate or to increase. What was actually to reduce expenditure. Some of the vote heads were actually going on the negatives. And you can trust me because I'm in the executive, I can tell you. And even this new supplementary will also go the same way because there has been a shortfall in revenue collection based on the revenue-raising measures. So the government is very keen to reduce expenditure to a large extent to ensure that we live within our means. And remember...
If it was very keen, would we have gotten to the situation we got into in June 2024?
I am talking... I mean, why are you pivoting back to the issue of the fact that the finance bill
Because you've chosen to answer your question, not mine.
No.
I was asking about the premise, not the action first. I'm trying to go systematically so that we can address... The premise was because of the feeling that it's a very heavy burden.
You know, your question you're asking, Dan, is like asking whether if the chicken lay an egg, whether it was fertilized. My question is, my answer is very simple. There were new revenue-raising measures, otherwise called the finance bill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Were people angry about them? Yes. Right? Were there good proposals in that finance bill? Yes, as well, I can tell you. Some that were even giving relief on some of these levies or deductions that we are currently having. But then because of the fact that there was public furore, His Excellency President William Ruto shelved the bill. So we cannot discuss and say that the Gen Z-led protests were ill-intentioned because they were listened to. That's a fait accompli.
Let's go to the next thing, because on that one, I think we've said enough. Now, when President Ruto took office in 2022, he promised Kenyans that his administration would uphold the 2/3 gender rule, a constitutional requirement and ensuring, I should say, no gender holds more than 2/3 in public offices. But 2 years later, actually 2.5, has he lived up to this promise? Our reporter Rukia Bulet takes a deep dive into Kenya Kwanza's gender agenda.
When President William Ruto was sworn into office in September 22, his commitment on the gender issue was unwavering.
On the matter of gender parity, I am committed to the 2/3 gender rule as enshrined in our constitution. We will work with Parliament to fast-track various legislative proposals and establish a framework that will resolve this matter expeditiously, as I promised in our manifesto.
However, when he named his cabinet secretaries just a month later, only 7 women made the cut, out of 22 positions, falling short of the 2/3 threshold. Women representation stood at just 31.8%.
When you look at the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, there is a very explicit promise that the 2/3 gender rule would be implemented within the first 1 year of Ruto's government. Then he also promised 50% of cabinet positions to women, reneged on the promise to fulfill the 2/3 gender rule in all appointive and elective positions within 1 year, and definitely has failed on giving the 50% cabinet slots to women.
Fast forward to July 2024, President Ruto reshuffled his cabinet, firing most of his cabinet secretaries and appointing new ones. But yet again, women only secured 5 of the 22 cabinet positions, even fewer than before. The constitution is clear. The 2/3 gender rule should apply to all government appointments. Yet, since 2010, no administration, including Ruto's, has successfully implemented it.
There's verbal enthusiasm about this principle, but it is not backed by action. It is for purposes of being politically correct, purposes of populism, maybe purposes of appearing good, to women, saying the right thing, but not doing the right thing.
And it's not just the cabinet. A closer look appointments in principal secretaries, ambassadors, and heads of parastatals reveals the same gender imbalance. Women remain underrepresented at top levels of government.
Women have intellectual capacities. They have technical capacities. They have capacities in every area. So why are they not getting the space to exercise this? We are also saying that by women not being in those positions, the electorate are being denied the talents that these women have. So it means that we are not giving the electorate, we are not giving the citizens, the nation, the full range of talents that we have.
A promise made but not yet fulfilled. As Kenya inches closer to another election cycle, the question remains: will the two-third gender rule ever become a reality, or will it remain just another campaign pledge? Rukia Bule, NTV.
Mwaura, two-third gender rule. According to the manifesto, it says, and has been said by the professor there, that realization of the two-thirds gender rule in elective and appointive positions in the public sector, the government will ensure that within 12 months this will happen following election, including 50% cabinet positions to women.
Thank you very much. Your question is very well stated, and I would want to answer as follows. There is that issue of whether it is a rule or is it a principle. But if you read Article 81 of the Constitution, then it's a gender principle. Because sometimes people confuse between the principle and the rule. And it's important that we know the difference between the two. Having said that, what did President Ruto do the moment he came into office? He wrote a very good memorandum to Parliament expressing the intentions and the desire of his administration to ensure that we achieve the two-thirds gender principle, please let's note principle, in Parliament. So that is a matter within Parliament. If you look at even the calculations that you have given there, fair enough, but if you have 7 out of 22 cabinet slots, then that is about 31%. And so at least not more than 2/3. Again, at least you have a third there, being women. Look at even the reason...
No, it's not yet a third, Mwaura.
Yeah?
It's not yet a third.
No, 31%.
Yeah, a third is 33%.
Yeah, but that's negligible anyway.
It's not negligible when you talk about a principle and talk about...
Either way, it's not something that you can say there is no trial. I would want to defend it myself. When you look at even the issue of the appointment of ambassadors, quite a number. In fact, recently I was in Geneva. The ambassador there is a lady. The ambassador to Zambia is a lady. There are quite a number of women who have
disputing that they are women.
There are quite a number of women who have been appointed in senior positions, even within the UDA party. The chair is actually a woman governor.
None is denying that there are women in these positions. The question is in the ratio. So let's not conflate issues where we're talking about the ratio of women. Aside from what is stipulated about 2/3 or not, not more than 2/3, the president went on to promise that he will have 50% women in cabinet. How would you defend that?
I would defend it in the following manner. First and foremost, we are still in government.
So he has failed to fulfill his promise?
No, he has not failed because he's still able to fulfill as much as it is within his power. You get the point?
No, that was not his promise. The promise was not that one day will. He said when he gets into government, he'll form cabinet
but he's still in government. He's still in government, and I want to assure you here, my brother, that it is the intention and desire and the will of this administration to fulfill that pledge. That one I can tell you without a doubt.
But the thing is...
Even recently, the cabinet was able to pass a very good gender policy that speaks to the real substantive equality of women.
I understand you're trying to really, do your job, but let me just take you back to what is in the manifesto. That will ensure realization of the 2/3 gender rule in elective and appointive positions in the public sector within 12 months following election, including 50% cabinet positions to women. This is not about there's an intention, there's a will. This is a clear and fulfilled promise. True or false?
The cabinet...
True or false, Mwaura?
No. I will not go to true or false. Clearly, you're also trying to do your job. I will tell you this, my brother.
I'm just going with facts.
No, you're going with facts. But allow me also to express myself by telling you that the president still has the intention to do whatever it takes to fulfill the aspirations of the gender principle. That one, I can tell you without a doubt.
So if a promise not fulfilled is turned into an intention, why should people trust him?
Can I ask you something?
You could answer me first then.
Can I ask you something? Because you also asked me, but let me also ask you. Does it mean now that we are in the midterm that all that we promised, my brother, has been fulfilled?
Well,
and the answer is no.
No.
So therefore, when you talk true or false, I'll tell you, we have not been able to fulfill everything. Is there an intention? Yes, there is.
But Mwaura, this promise was not made about intention. That is what my point is. This was very specific with the timeline. And so I guess we don't have to dwell there for very long because it is evident. The facts are saying it and you just will not admit it. But there's a promise that within 12 months, that is by September 2023, we should have been having 50% of cabinet positions to women, and the 2/3 gender rule should have been realized in elective and appointive positions. So that I think is...
In elective and appointive positions?
Yes.
Let me take you there.
Appointive is where he has full control of. Elective, we talked about the memorandum.
The same case also about these elective positions. You really, even if you had the best of intentions, that is the people, these are the people who determine.
That's fine, and that's what I'm saying. He did the memorandum in December.
And even in appointive positions, sometimes there are many factors to be considered that sometimes impede the attainment of that aspiration, but the aspiration remains.
It's unfortunate, I think, if for people who are living on hope, and you've known how, for example, women over the years have sought to have their place at the table, get promised something, then a year and a half after when the promise time frame was lapsing, they are being told there is intention. It becomes a short change to them.
I can tell you without a doubt, there are many other things that, of course, we may have wished to do them within certain timelines, but they were not achieved. But it doesn't mean that we have gotten off the target.
But you're off the target, Mwaura.
No,
the 12 months ended.
And I'm telling you, there are many others. The target
the 12 months ended.
The period may have lapsed, but the target is not
But
off.
the period is part of the definition of the target. I think we moved something else because we are going around.
Let us agree to disagree with you on that one because
you're disagreeing with your manifesto.
No, if that premise was to do, I am also telling you this. In our manifesto, there are quite a number of timelines. We had 12 months. We had actually we had 6 months. We had 3 months. Let me take you through because I was really part of.
You even had immediately.
No, let me tell you, I was a part of the writing of the manifesto. In fact, the first draft, I'm the one who wrote it. I will tell you.
And
so we had.
And you can't tell when you've broken it.
Within 3 months, we had 6 months. We have 12 months. We had 18 months and 36 months, and when we had 60 months. All of those are timelines there. And I will tell you a single answer to all of that. Yes, those were the intentions. We may not have been able to meet all of those targets, but my brother, the intention remains, the focus remains.
But people don't want intention, they want action. And reality.
Action has been taken to the extent that we have made appointments for women. We have actually continued to do so. We still have the challenge of Parliament passing the proposals of the President.
And
thank you.
And you do know that you may not admit it, but it's very telling. The response you're having in light of, and it's not my personal opinion, in light of the manifesto that you yourselves did and the proclamation of the President himself, which I think we could then pick it up from there and move to something else. And another thing that is in the manifesto is that, for instance, there's a bunch of them, and I'm just trying to sift through and see what we can tackle now. One of them, let's talk about healthcare.
Yes, please.
And there's a whole SHA-SHIF situation that has, again, not sat well with many. Right? Just for the record first, do you think SHA is working properly?
Let me first pivot back to our previous conversation and tell you there are timelines in the manifesto. Some of them have not been achieved, but we remain on course. Now, let's come to Taifa Care. On 19th of October, His Excellency President William Ruto, 19th of October 2023, he signed 4 laws that was supposed to transform the whole universal health coverage debate. And we were targeting to start registering Kenyans on 1st of March, 2024. Because of litigations, back and forth, strikes, we did a lot. We were only able to do that 1st of October. Mm-hmm. And then there has been a backlog of claims by hospitals transitioning from NHIF to Taifa Care. And it is important I take this opportunity to explain to people that Taifa Care is broader than NHIF in the sense that we have the primary care fund, which is covering level 1, 2, and 3. We have the social health insurance fund that is covering level 4, 5, and 6. That is the hospitals. We have ECCIF, which is emergency and critical care insurance fund for emergencies. So the primary care fund and the ECCIF are funded directly by the government, what we call the exchequer. The rest is contributory. Now, we have over 19.7 million Kenyans who have registered as we speak right now. But then the people who are paying through this system are only 3.5 million. This is an insurance like any other. So first, you need to deal with the issue of backlog in debt, about 39 billion. And there has been a decision by His Excellency the President that those hospitals, and there are over 90% who are claiming 10 billion and below, they be cleared with. But then there was fraud within NHIF. People are gaming the system. So within 90 days, there's now a committee to verify those bills and therefore come up with a plan to pay. But for the social health insurance fund, all the claims, 18.2 billion, has already been paid as we speak. And it is our intention to be clearing this every month. So yes, there are teething problems like any other issue. There are financing gaps that we anticipate that Parliament, in its wisdom, will actually ensure that there's enough money, or at least adequate money, for PCF, Primary Care Fund, and also for ECCIF. But Kenyans, one of the biggest challenges of our health system are people who can't pay, won't pay. They are called indigents, if you are to use the term that is used usually. We call upon Kenyans also to pay into the contribution from a minimum of 300 shillings to the maximum that you are allowed according to your pay. Of course, we are looking at the mean testing instrument so that we make sure that it is more responsive. We are also looking at people, how they can be paying through M-Pesa daily so that you are able to reduce the burden of just paying once at a go. But I can tell you for sure, because I have tested the system, personally, it has paid for me. Sometimes that I needed medication, and also there's someone close to me that it has paid for, and other people. So yes, there are teething problems. You're talking about people resisting change. You're talking about retraining, which is being done currently. You're talking about ensuring the whole, management information system is working, and that's just change of culture, but it is working.
So, in light of the sensitivity of healthcare,
yes,
with all these challenges that are coming, some of which have a fatal end, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Should this have waited a bit longer to put that house in order? Especially in light of the sensitivity of healthcare.
I'll tell you this, my brother. The challenge is we had a very good transition mechanism that was interfered with by litigation. You would be the same person asking me, oh, you guys, you promised universal health care, but you've not been able to attain it. The timelines are also affected by other factors other than the intention of government. You get the point? So that phasing, unfortunately, the time that it would have taken was more or less, done and taken away by these issues of quarrels and strikes and what have you. So we have to start. Sometimes it's not perfect. Sometimes we don't have it right, but we are implementing as we go. Why? Because we're also not coming from a clean slate. We have had the experience of NHIF that we are learning from, and we're also learning from the teething problems. That is why we're even having a benefits review committee, for example, for oncology, where we are proposing to increase from 4,800 per bed night to 28,000, for example. And that whole package from 400,000 to 550,000. We are listening to what Kenyans are telling us and taking remedial action.
I just want to, there's a question here that has been shared with me that CHPs in the counties have gone for months without stipends, for close to 6 months, and they say the government stipend of 2,500 shillings comes in batches.
By the way, I would want to say this without a doubt that the national government has been paying its part of the bargain, because it is 5,000, 2,000, 2,500, 2,500. So we are also calling upon the county governments to also really pay these 106,000 CHPs that are really helping us in the preventive.
So you're saying as the national government, this is not on you?
The national government has been very prompt in its payment, I can tell you without a doubt. To a large extent, yes. But the counties should also be able to pay because it's a partnership, and it is at the preventive level because one CHP is covering several households, so that we don't have a burden of care and morbidity highly in the system. So because we are doing preventive, promotive, curative, so it's very palliative. It's the 5 pillars of healthcare. So this is a very important aspect so that we don't end up with so many people in hospital.
Okay, I want to jump into education for a bit now. And there were some promises in the manifesto. There's a promise that to bridge the current teacher shortage gap of 116,000 within 2 financial years.
Yes, please.
56,000 employed on permanent terms, 20,000 on contract. Put in place a special service tariff for all learning institutions for basic utilities. This has not been done.
Well, now, the problem with that question of yours, it also has an answer in it.
But see, we're going against facts, not against...
Please ask the question so that you also don't use my answer,
okay,
to ask the same question, because now I don't know what to respond to.
Has this been done?
What is it not being done? What is not being done?
Have you bridged the teacher shortage gap of 116,000 within 2 financial years, 56,000 employed on permanent terms and 20 on contract, put in place a special service tariff for all learning institutions for basic utilities?
So let me give you statistics. In Kenya, we have about 805,000 teachers, okay, of which 410 are employed by the government. And then you have a remainder, about 100,000 that are still with the private sector, the rest are unemployed. Never has it happened since the history of this republic that the government has been able to employ 76,000 teachers within less than 2 years. That is really, really unimaginable. At the same time, we have been able to replace 8,707 teachers through natural attrition, whether they have left TSC and what have you. It is really, really huge, and we still are going to employ more teachers. We have a target based on finances, about 6,000 teachers that we intend to employ for secondary schools. And going forward, because we need to reduce that. Remember, this shortage is a moving target. At some point, it was about 60,000 teachers. Now, our manifesto places at 116,000. I mean, let us give credit where it is due. While we may not have been able to attain the whole of it, but employing 76,000 teachers at a go is highly commendable.
I think the problem goes back, as I've been saying, to what was promised, which is why people voted in, those who voted for Kenya Kwanza, voted you and the team, the President Ruto and his team in, on account of the promises. And so that is, in my view, partly why there's the disgruntlement, people feeling that what we voted for is not what we have gotten. Do you agree?
Yes, to a certain extent, people may feel so. But has there been, is there effort being made to fulfill that promise? Has there been reasons to say, okay, you are targeting to have an A, but at least you are at some B+ somewhere? So that then your term is not, and we are in the midterm, my brother. So we said within 2 years, but within those 2 years we've done 76,000. So what is the balance? It's about around that would be around 40-something thousand. We can do the calculations clearly. So you can see this still can be attained within the remainder of the term, so that by the end of the day, if we have 116,000 teachers employed, we'll have been able to resolve that issue. Now, when it comes to the issue of running our schools, capitation has been a challenge, but we've been able to disburse, like for example, we needed 48 billion. In this first term, we've been able to give quite a number of these amount of money. We've been able to distribute 9.9 million books across the country. We've been able to build close to 16,000 classrooms. The last time I checked, there were about 14,500. It has never happened before. I mean, let's give credit where it is due, you know? We have come up with a new funding model for the universities, although it has been contested, but you can see for sure, our intention of trying to reduce the insolvency of universities where they had, you know, bills accumulating up to 8 billion is well-intentioned, you know? And we've asked Kenyans to give their views if they have anything that is alternative, so that then we can, because they may know something that would work, because we are all Kenyans, we need to be you know, patriotic, so that then we are able to move the Kenyan you know, government and the country forward together.
Okay. In closing, do you feel that Kenya Kwanza has become more unpopular, is currently more unpopular than it was at the point of election?
If you look at the world over, my brother, governments, when they are approaching their midterm, they are never popular. So
your answer is?
No, let me answer you in that length. It's not fair for me to give you a yes or no. The point is, my friend Mwangi, is that people are not yet seeing the results of what the government promised, because it's still being cooked. It's still being, so it's like the way you plant. So you're not seeing the results. So now, but by the time people go to the elections, things change, because they are now starting to see, like, these houses are working. SHA has been able to be fixed with the teething problems. People are now able to appreciate that, for example, UNGA has come down, and also GMR was true, because now like the one for coffee is working, the one for milk is working at 50 bob, the one for sugarcane is working 5,300, the Miraa one is 2,000, 1,300 and 1,000 of the three types of Miras. They can now see the benefit because wakona pesa mfukoni. So midterm is not the best time. In fact, if there were to be a midterm election, if, like the way sometimes you differentiate between the local government and the national, most of the you know, parties in power tend to lose. But in the end, they still get back to win, because people then see, yes, these people
so when election
did exactly
is held today,
what they did.
Would President Ruto win?
No, that's not a question that I can answer, because it depends on Kenyans. But from where I sit, has he performed against all odds, against all the circumstances? Yes, and that's why I gave you a score of 8 to 10.
So,
and thankfully, the elections are not today, because midterm elections are usually not favorable to incumbents. But definitely, when people start...
So you agree the popularity has dwindled?
Popularity is not a function of the Kenya Kwanza administration. It is a general phenomenon the world over.
But an election is also part of popularity.
Yeah, but there's no election today, my brother.
Fair enough, but I mean...
I think I've told you the answer, really, honestly.
Yeah, you've actually said that you have not achieved a lot of... Some of the things, rather, that you are...
Yes, we've not achieved, but we are working on them. Not all of them, and you see, but we have achieved a lot, by the way, given the circumstances. We've achieved a lot. A lot. The
biggest challenge is not... No one is contesting whether you've done A, B, C, or D. What's really the issue, for at least for tonight, is that what you yourselves promised in a number of things has not been achieved. You see, you did not promise that you have the intent or the willingness. You promised some things which were time-bound, and that is where the frustration is. And I'm sure you can check the comments coming up on social media right now, and we should not dismiss them just because social media watu mitandaoni. You've heard that before, but these are people whose views, some of whom, yes, will agree with you, but some of whom are going to say that this is not what was promised. What we have is not what was promised. And you've seen the memes and the jokes about what was ordered versus what was delivered. It feels like there's that element on this matter. But nonetheless...
Can I respond to that and tell you this, my brother Danmangi, that governments are never popular. We may have not fully, like now the issue on 16,000 versus 76, I think that's very commendable. But there are some things that we have even surpassed our promise, quite a number of them. And it will be good also, to be fair, not just to focus on where maybe there have been a shortfall, and focus on also what we have done that is beyond what people are able to expect. For example, when you tell me about that now companies are closing, I beg to differ. Because if you look at even last year, some of the companies that were declaring profit had not declared before, including our Kenya Power. If you look at the startup capital... But there are companies that laid off people. Startup capital, 2023, we were able to attract $800 million, #1 in Africa. In 2024, we were again number 1 in Africa with $638 million, ahead of countries like South Africa and Nigeria.
Are you disputing that there are countries, there are companies that
by the end of the day, by the end of the day, my brother, what I'm trying to say in short, is that there are also gains that have gone beyond what people were expecting.
Are you disputing that there are companies that laid off?
I am telling you that is just one side of the story. There are also others that have also made profit.
You don't agree with it.
Like even KQ.
I'm glad at least you agree with it.
No, I don't agree with it. I am telling
some companies laid off.
It's good to give both sides of the story. And so if there are companies that may have laid off people and you need to mention them, also government has created employment.
So what is the net effect right now?
The net effect is that more people are employed, comparatively.
We'll get the data and we'll get back to you on that.
The fact that inflation has reduced from 9.2% to 3.5% means that the cost of living has also gone down.
So do people have more money in their pockets?
The economy has actually grown by 5.6%. That means it is doing better. But you see, sometimes it is what you focus on, the narrative that you create. For me, from where I sit, and I'm seeing this very, eyeball to eyeball, the government has done extremely well given the circumstances.
Okay. Yes. Do people have more money in their pockets?
When you have reduced inflation and you have reduced the cost of living, that makes people to have some headroom. When you have the reduced cost of fuel, it means that even if, for example, maybe monies may not have increased exponentially, but at least the cost of living has been subsidized. But also, at the same time, when you have milk being sold at 50 shillings per liter, when you have unga coming down, when you have sugar cane, even people getting bonus, when you have Miraa farmers getting their product, when you have the increase of rice production, what does that tell you? That is a story the media sometimes is not telling.
Well, you would say I'm doing a good job if I did something extraordinary, but by doing my job, the question is when the job is not done is where there's a concern. Thank you very much, Isaac Mwaura, who is the government spokesman, for speaking.